Minnesota, 1980. A small-town girl vanishes into a deadly blizzard. Hours later, her body is found in the snow, stiff, frozen solid, her eyes glassy and lifeless. The doctors who see her whisper one word, dead. But then, something impossible happens. Jean Hilliard wakes up. This is not a ghost story. It is not a legend. It's a true case that has haunted doctors, baffled scientists, and left an entire town convinced they had witnessed a miracle. Or something far stranger. Tonight, we dive deep into the disappearance, the freezing, and the unexplainable return of Jean Hilliard, and we'll leave you with one chilling question. Was she truly gone, or was something keeping her alive in the ice? December 20th, 1980. Lengby, Minnesota. A town so small you could drive through it in minutes, surrounded by farmland and endless woods. That night, the air was razor sharp, slicing at anyone who dared step outside. The temperature plunged to nearly minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit. The kind of cold that didn't just sting, it killed. Jean Hilliard, 19 years old, was on her way home from a night out. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't chasing danger. She was just driving back through the empty, snow-choked roads, her father's car rattling beneath her. But on those icy roads, one mistake is all it takes. Somewhere in the darkness, Jean lost control. The car skidded, slid, and landed nose first in a ditch. The engine cut off. She tried to restart it. Nothing. She was stranded. No cell phone. No heater. No way to call for help. The snowstorm swallowed the car whole, burying her in silence. Jean knew she had two choices: stay inside and freeze or start walking. Bundled in only a winter coat, cowboy boots, and mittens, Jean stepped into the blizzard. She knew there was a friend's farmhouse just a couple of miles away, a man named Wally Nelson. If she could reach it, she'd be safe. But 2 miles in a Minnesota blizzard feels like 20. Her breath crystallized in the air. The wind ripped through her coat. Her boots slipped on ice, her legs heavy with snow. She tried to keep her mind sharp, to keep moving. But soon, the cold dug in deeper. Her body slowed. Her mind blurred. The house, so close, felt impossibly far. And at some point, Jean's body could not fight anymore. At 1 a.m., just 15 feet from Wally Nelson's front door, Jean collapsed. Face first into the snow, unmoving. Hours passed. The world was silent except for the wind. No one came. By dawn, Jean was still lying there, frozen solid. The nightmare had only begun. Morning came to Lengby, Minnesota, with a brittle stillness. The snow had stopped falling, but the temperature had dropped even further. The town was still asleep under its frozen blanket. Inside his farmhouse, Wally Nelson stirred. He wasn't expecting visitors, certainly not at dawn. But as he opened his door to the sharp bite of morning air, he froze. There, sprawled face down in the snow, was Jean Hilliard. At first glance, Wally thought he was staring at a corpse. Her skin was white as frost. Her hair was stiff, crystallized with ice. Her body, every limb, every finger, looked like stone. He rushed forward, tried to move her, but she was stiff as a board. Wally later said, "She was frozen solid, like a log. I threw her in the back seat of my car and drove her to the hospital. It was like loading up a statue." The drive to Foston Hospital was frantic. Wally didn't think she'd survive. None of them did. The hospital staff took one look at Jean's body and prepared themselves for the worst. Her face was waxy, her eyes glassy and unfocused. The doctors could not find a pulse. No breath. No signs of life. Her body temperature was so low that their thermometers couldn't even register it. Medically, she was dead. And yet, something stopped them from declaring it. Instead, they began the slow, almost hopeless process of trying to warm her body. They wrapped her in heating pads, ran warm air over her, and massaged her frozen limbs. Minutes passed, then hours. Doctors whispered among themselves, baffled. Why were they even trying? No one survives 6 hours in that kind of cold. But then something flickered. A tiny spasm in her chest. A faint pulse. Jean Hilliard was alive. Doctors stared at their monitors in disbelief. Jean's pulse was faint, fluttering like a candle flame in the wind. But it was there. When they touched her skin, it felt like frozen leather. Her face was pale, her body stiff, but her eyes moved, slowly, weakly. And then, to everyone's shock, Jean whispered. Her voice was hoarse, barely audible, but the words were clear. "I'm cold." The room went silent. Nurses stopped in their tracks. For hours they had believed they were handling a corpse, and now the corpse was speaking. By all medical understanding, Jean should not have been alive. Her body temperature had dropped far below what science considered survivable. She had no memory of collapsing, no memory of the hours that had passed in the snow. The doctors called it a miracle. The newspapers soon would too. But in the moment, they were terrified. Because if Jean Hilliard could come back from the dead, what else was possible? Over the next hours, Jean's recovery stunned them further. Her frostbite began to ease. She could move her limbs. Her speech grew clearer. Apart from minor injuries to her toes, there seemed to be no permanent damage. People came to see her, to try and understand what they were witnessing. Some called it divine intervention. Others whispered about strange states of hibernation, about the human body entering a survival mode science couldn't yet explain. Jean herself? She said little. She didn't claim a miracle. She didn't try to explain. When reporters asked what she remembered, she simply said, "I just thought I'd never make it, but I did." Jean's survival became national news. Small-town Minnesota suddenly found itself the center of a story the world couldn't stop talking about. Doctors called in from across the country, each wanting to examine the case. None had answers. How had she avoided brain damage? How had her organs restarted after 6 hours of being shut down? To some, the answer was simple: a miracle from God. Lengby was a deeply religious town. People filled the local church, praying and praising. Pastors spoke of Jean's story as proof that faith could triumph over death itself. But others weren't so sure. Scientists suggested a phenomenon known as supercooling. When the body freezes slowly, sometimes the cells don't rupture. Instead, they enter a suspended state, like hibernation, like missing time. Jean never leaned into either version. She didn't give speeches. She didn't chase cameras. She simply went home. But she was never quite the same. Neighbors said she seemed quieter after the incident, more thoughtful, at times even haunted. When asked what it felt like to die and come back, she didn't answer. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe there were things she experienced in the snow that words could never capture. For decades, Jean's case remained one of medicine's strangest anomalies. Textbooks cited it. Doctors referenced it in lectures. But no one fully explained it. Some said it was luck, that her fall into the snow had preserved her body like a freezer, that the cold slowed her metabolism just enough to keep her alive without oxygen. Others said it was divine, that no scientific explanation could ever account for a girl frozen stiff, pulse gone, suddenly sitting up and speaking. But the people of Lengby told another story, a quieter one. They said Jean changed after that night, that she lived, yes, but part of her never came back. Her eyes carried something, a distance, a weight. Those who knew her well swore she didn't like to talk about it, not because she was ungrateful, but because she couldn't explain what had happened in the missing hours. The hours when her body was frozen, yet her spirit lingered. Jean Hilliard survived the impossible. She went on to live an ordinary life. Married, raised children, grew older. But her story never left her. It never left Minnesota. And it never left the medical journals. Because it remains unsolved. Science cannot fully explain it. Faith claims it as a miracle. But the truth is, Jean's case sits in the dark space between the two. That night, she disappeared. Not just into a blizzard, but into death itself. And when she came back, we were left with a question we still can't answer. What really happens when the body shuts down? And how close can we come to the edge before something or someone pulls us back? Jean Hilliard's survival is one of the darkest, strangest true stories ever recorded. A mystery of faith, science, and the thin line between life and death. What do you think saved her that night? Divine intervention or something science has yet to understand? Let us know in the comments below. And for more chilling mysteries like this video, subscribe to Cold Case Chronicles and never miss a story that still haunts the world.